Hi everyone, welcome to Midweek. Glad you could be here to join us. Got a couple things that I want to share with you today. Kind of all of them connect a little bit to the preaching, but also to our guys. So we just kind of finished up Joel. Hope you enjoyed it. I did. The minor prophets are never easy. It's not like they're dealing with soft things. And so we went through that and we ended with the Battle of Armageddon of all things and the end. So now I want to take us to another very small book. Actually, Joel's small. This one's even smaller. It's Jude. Who is Jude? Well, he's the brother of James with Jesus. Jude is an interesting guy. Much like James, Jude is kind of not in your face, but he is no nonsense. James, he does that stuff like, "Consider it all joy, my brothers, whenever you experience trials of many kind, knowing that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and perseverance character." I mean, who says that other than a person who understands kind of gritty life? That's James. Jude really is the same way. I often wonder if what makes them so kind of matter of fact is the fact that they grew up with Jesus. And maybe they're those kind of guys that kind of realize for the longest time we missed our brother Jesus. We didn't know who he was. We didn't worship him. And now, because Jude comes along the scene and he deals with kind of one of the great lines that comes out of the book of Jude is contending for the faith. I mean, that's just hey, you got to put your oars in the water. You got to put the hoe into the ground and you got to contend you got to fight for the faith. That's his language. Why? Because then he goes, well, there's going to be false teachers out there. And then there's going to be all kinds of danger of moral corruption. So kind of like Joel, and that's why I wanted to go into Jude. Why? Because as we live in this season where there is a lot of moral corruption, where there is a lot of false teaching, where we are preparing for the return of Christ, how is it that we live? What kind of life do we live? What kind of character do we need? And how do we fight that battle? Jude ends, and it's again, just one chapter. What we're going to do is we're going to break it into 4 weeks, and we're going to look at it in terms of our calling, the challenges, but ultimately at the very end, trusting God's sovereignty. This is certainly not just a sermon series for guys. I will tell you, I'm thinking a lot about our guys, largely because that's often where the enemy really hits hard, and sometimes it's where a church doesn't address some of the things that we need. Our guys leading our men's ministry, which is Pastor Jeff and Tyler, they were telling me this past week that about 87% of all churches in America have a women's ministry. Only 7% have a men's ministry. In a sense, that's kind of tragic. Again, I don't want to decrease the women's ministry, but we would love to see the elevation. And part of the reason, I think, is because what Jude has noticed is there tends to be maybe this retreat from the real battle. And James has noticed maybe even what I would call a softness in the Christian community. And so both Jude and James, these brothers of Christ, are kind of calling us to maybe an in-your-face, hey, this is what you got to do. You got to contend for the faith. It's a challenge. It's a war. So I'm putting my eyes on certainly our guys, all people, but I'm taking an interest in how does this relate to the guys of our church. I'm going to transition us to an interview. We have a men's conference coming up that we're going to be participating in. A lot of our guys have been through a series called Better Man. It's really been wonderful and helpful. And the whole Better Man team is coming to Salem. And so you're going to see information. Tyler is interviewing Chris Harper, who's one of the leads of that. It's going to be coming and speaking. So guys, I want to give you a personal invitation. bunch of our guys are going to go. I'm going to be there. We're just going to be, I'm not teaching. I'm just participating with you, hanging out with the guys for the day. All of the details are there. But guys, let's get a whole ton of us. And let's come here. Let's sign up together. Let's march down there together and go spend the day wrestling with what does it mean as men to contend for the faith. Take a look at this interview that Tyler does with Chris Harper, and make sure you get all the information. It's in February. Let's all go together.
Hey there, Pastor Tyler here, and I am sitting with my new friend, Chris Harper, who is the leader of the ministry Better Man and one of the speakers at the Pacific Northwest Men's Conference coming up. We wanted to sit down for a couple minutes, and I'm just gonna pepper this guy with questions to help you get to know him, but also to light your heart on fire for what the conference is gonna entail in part. So, Chris, welcome, man. Thanks for coming down.
Brother, it's so good. It's my first time in Oregon.
Okay.
So I'm so excited
Welcome to
be
the
here,
Pacific
man.
Northwest.
That's right.
And where do you live, for those that don't know?
I live Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, Fort Worth, Texas. And you've been the leader of Better Man how many years now?
Yeah, I've been there for right at 3 years now.
We had talked before about the whole approach of Better Man and the four-pronged approach that you use with it, which is going to be, it's kind of the frame of the conference, right?
That's right.
Do you want to walk our audience through what are you guys trying to accomplish at the conference? What
Absolutely.
are the themes?
Absolutely. So we have a core conviction that you can't become what you can't define. Another way of saying that is anything that's not rightly understood will inevitably be abused. Yeah. So a thing has to be rightly understood. It has to be rightly defined. So some years ago, we basically put together a definition. We said, based on God's timeless word, this is what it means to be a man today. This is what it means to be God's man in the 21st century. And we call it the 4 W's. We alliterate everything.
Yes,
it
we
makes
do.
it super sticky. And it's a real man courageously follows God's word. Yep. A real man, he loves and he honors and he protects God's woman. A real man excels at the work that God gives him. And then a real man betters God's world through his church, his community, and his children. So word, woman, work, world. And if you look at it, it's really the antithesis of Adam. It's everything Adam failed to do in those first few chapters of Genesis that we're calling men out and calling them up to.
Yeah. You had said before when we were chatting that men almost naturally gravitate back towards something, and I really liked your verbiage. What are you finding that men are wanting in some form or fashion?
Yeah, men really need two things, especially today. They need clarity around their design and their purpose, and then they need the community of other men. So if you show a man how to win, he'll typically play the game.
Yeah.
If he doesn't know how to win, he'll sit on the sidelines. Men's ministry in the 90s used to say the problem was passivity, and everyone had to fight passivity. Well, today it's not passivity; it's ignorance. We have a lot of young men. We have a lot of men that they grew up without actual fathers. They grew up without spiritual fathers. They didn't have a guide. So they're just sitting on the sideline waiting for someone to show them the way, and Better Man's a part of that process.
I love that. When you look at culture, I feel like all of us could maybe look at small little symptoms of what we think is wrong with the culture of men, but as someone that is on the front lines and looking at how to change the culture of men, what are you seeing are some of the problems that we're typically falling into?
Yeah, absolutely. When men don't have a path, right? I believe it was Jeremiah in chapter 6 talked about the ancient paths, the paths that lead to life. So when men don't have a path, when they don't have a plan, they typically do one of three things. Yeah. They either pretend and make it up as they go, which they break a lot of things in the process, right? They're guessing at their manhood. 2, they will copy and mimic the loudest voice in culture.
Okay.
So like today we have a lot of men mimicking guys like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, some stuff that's not really healthy.
Yeah.
Or 3, they'll slow quit their manhood and masculinity, and they'll just kind of fade into the background.
Yeah.
Either one of those paths is both dangerous and deadly. So that's really what we're seeing in culture today.
To any of the men that might be on the fence about coming to this conference, what would you want to say to inspire them? Like, guys, you really need to be here.
Absolutely. If you're looking for clarity, if you're looking for a definition, if you're looking for a catalytic moment in your life to really lay hold of that full inheritance. I mean, I'm talking about be the man that God's called you to be. You're going to get those two things at this conference if you show up. you will get the definition. You will get clarity around what it means to be God's man, and you'll get it from some of the best teachers in America. And then you're also going to be with 1,200 plus like-minded men that hopefully you can start a journey with and get going on your way.
I don't know about you, Chris, but there's one thing when you're sitting with a bunch of guys and you're all learning the same thing, but when I'm worshiping with other men, when men are belting it out, which we're not known for in worship.
That's right.
When we're singing together, I remember in the previous men's conferences, I was like, this just feels empowering.
Yeah, one of the old church saints used to say there's 2 marks of a healthy church: crying babies and singing men. And
I love that. I don't know.
We need
I'm
both.
stealing that immediately.
That's good,
so
man.
good.
That's good.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to sit under your speaking and your friends that you're bringing along. Thanks for coming.
It's an honor, brother. Thank you.
See you guys at the conference.